Okay, I'll call to order the Wednesday, March 19th, 2025 regular meeting of the Oregon City Urban Renewal Commission. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Lori Arinello.
Here.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Here.
Commissioner Denise McGriff.
Present.
Commissioner Doug Neely. Commissioner Scott Wilson.
Here.
And Chair Mike Mitchell.
Here. Thank you. Once again, if you want to make a public comment this evening, be sure and get a comment card over on the table and turn it in to Mr. Wiley. Are there any public comments tonight on the item that is not on our agenda? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to item number 3A, which is Urban Renewal Commission discussion of Section 59 of the Oregon City Charter. And what we're going to do, we're going to hear the staff report first, and then we will take questions from any of the Urban Renewal Commissioners directed toward the staff. After that, we will go through the public comments, and I have quite a few. And then we will have discussion and deliberation from the commission after that. So we will start out at this time with the staff report.
Thank you. So we did provide the staff report dated March 19th, laying out the same options that we had discussed at the February 11th meeting. During that meeting, Urban Renewal Commissioner members asked about closing the district. So if the governing body, which is defined as the city commission of a jurisdiction with an urban renewal agency, decides that there no longer exists a need for an agency in the jurisdiction, the governing body shall provide by ordinance for a termination of the agency and transfers of the agency's facilities, files, and personnel to the jurisdiction. So in this case, so the existing cash on hand would be sent back to the tax assessor to be redistributed to the taxing districts based on the percentage of their tax that they levy. And then the properties could be transferred to the city from the Urban Renewal Agency to the City Commission as part of closing the district. The second was the process to open a new district. So had included 3 attachments that related to kind of an FAQ about urban renewal, and then kind of a guide to opening, closing urban renewal plans inside of there. So really it's going through that public process of creating the plan as outlined by the Oregon revised statutes, similar to, very similar to how we amended it. I mean, a little bit different since we'd be creating a new plan. The base, the frozen base would obviously reset with a new plan from where it's frozen right now. There'd be coordination with the overlapping taxing districts. And since it's a newer plan, there are limitations on the amount of indebtedness that could be authorized based on population and assessed value of the district. So there'd be some new work that would be done in creating a new district if the existing one were closed. We did provide some information related to that Mr. Kabaisman had put together about a declaratory judgment versus a validation suit. I think one other component is that when the Urban Renewal Commission adopted the latest revision to the Urban Renewal Plan, we did insert the language that is identified in the charter about sending the question to the voters. So I would imagine that in a validation suit, after thinking about it a little bit more and talking with Bill, is that the Urban Renewal Agency would probably need to amend the plan to remove that from the plan itself. You could imagine asking for validation suit when your plan is directing the vote to happen. So I think there would be one extra step in there associated with the validation suit. And then, like I said, we did attach the Association of Oregon Redevelopment Agencies best practices, the legal opinion from Mr. Kabaisman, FAQ on urban renewal, the tax increment financing by urban renewal, the actual chapter 457 from the Oregon revised statutes, the email public comments that we've received, and then the entire packet from February 11th. So with that, be happy to try and answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, any questions from the commissioners for Mr. Kabizman or Mr. Kunkel? Commissioner Aaron.
Can the urban renewal plan be updated or revised without closing the district?
Yes.
Yes.
Are there limits on what revisions can be made?
Yes.
The process for amending the plan is set out in statute, also mentioned in and further defined in the plan itself. And the plan itself differentiates between major and minor. I think it is, it could be significant or insignificant. I forget the exact wording. But the major one would require going through the whole process as if it's adopted again, which would mean going through the city commission and some other steps. This would most likely qualify as a minor amendment. And so it just would have to go through the urban renewal agency.
So like there were threshold limitations on changing the boundary, for example, right? So as long as a minor amendment, I think it was 10% of the assessed value or area. I'd have to go back and look, but there was a threshold. So that'd be an example of, yes, it could be amended, it can be changed. Let's just say it's adding 2 tax lots. That's probably a minor process versus the major processes identified in ORS.
So we could theoretically amend the plan to add new sites or adopt new sites within the urban renewal district?
As long as, yes, you can. Depending on how much area will dictate the process.
Yes. My question is a follow-up to hers, actually. My recollection is that if you wanted to change the boundaries of the urban renewal district, you give up some property in the process, but how much that is, I think you said that it can't differ by more than 10%, is that right?
That sounds right. I just don't have the plan in front of me that sets out how much it is.
So I mean, we could, and I'll be specific, it doesn't bother me. If we wanted to expand the urban renewal district to include the old Blue Heron site, yes, the Tumwater Village, right. I use that statement because that's a firm statement because that regard to that as a blighted area. We could do that. It's just as long as it didn't exceed X% of the previous urban renewal district.
And I forget what the 10% is, and so we're operating a little bit outside of what we're prepared to discuss, but if it was less than that, then it's really pretty straightforward to make that change. If it's more than that, you can still do it. If my memory is, it requires it to go through the process as if you're adopting the plan in the first place, which means going to the different taxing jurisdictions and going to the city commission. It just adds more process, but you can certainly do it.
So as I recall, we had this discussion a few years ago, and if we were going to make a swap, we were talking about taking out, let's just say 1 acre, and then we would add 1 acre, so we wouldn't be changing the boundary, but there is a percentage. I believe ours is 10%. So we were trying to keep it even without having to expand the boundary, other than making that change. And that's a minor amendment, and that does not require going through the full blown process.
That fits my memory. I
Yes.
don't have it in front of me, and I don't want to give you an answer that without being 100% certain.
Yeah. So I'm certain, so that's okay. I feel comfortable with your answer. So I thought that the material that we got, which we have looked at this before from the Association of Redevelopment Agencies, was really good. It's a good primer. I know that some of us are not fully versed in all of this, but it was a good refresher just to go back through and read some of the things. The other thing that I thought was really good was the material from the League of Oregon Cities, which they always put out some really good information. And then the FAQs was really good. So I appreciate just getting some of this information again, even though when we did the amendment, we did the, adopt the updated urban renewal plan, we kind of went over some of this, but it doesn't hurt to refresh. So thanks staff for that.
Other questions?
And say it's good reading for the public as well, if you want to have a good, like, something to read and then go to sleep at night, so.
Commissioner Arnold?
Second question is, what would be the most efficient means of striking the clause in section 59 that has a cap limit on our expenditure for indebtedness? Would it be best to go through either declaratory judgment or validation and then update the piece of chapter that has those limits? Or would it be potentially better to strike that and put out a new ballot measure with a level of indebtedness that has a reasonable cap for the public to vote on?
I'm sorry. So you're asking to put something out to the voters?
Potentially, yeah. Could
So
we-
I think go ahead.
Could we seek that clarification or that amendment in our validation or declaratory suit and amend that at that time? Or does that stand and we have to extinguish it before putting out a new revised chapter? Does that make more or less sense?
I guess,
I
so
don't understand the question.
we could send to the voters right now any requested amount of indebtedness that we could afford to pay. So I think the maximum indebtedness in the district, 120 million, 130 million, right? But when we went out in May, we put out a ballot measure requesting approval to take on $40 million in debt, which would have been paid for with the 3.1 million in increment that we were collecting at those interest rates back then. They're about half of what they are now. So if you could go out at any time right now and ask the voters for approval of an amount of debt to take on, it would be driven by what we could pay or less. Okay? Is that answering your question, or are you asking about striking 59A through D from the charter?
Striking.
Okay, so you could send that to the voters. You could say, would the voters approve removing 59A through D from the Oregon City Charter? Send that to a vote. So we have it in the charter. We also have language in the last urban renewal plan that was adopted that references the charter. And so, Bill, do you want to talk a little bit about the timing there, if there was a declaratory judgment versus validation suit?
Yeah, if you, it's sort of alternate paths to the same end. One is going to the voters and saying, let's take this out. Alternatively, it's going to the court and saying, does this really apply, and getting clarity that way. Certainly in terms of if the voters take it out, then it's gone. If you go to the court, presumably, that's why we're going to the court, is to get the definitive answer. You've seen some arguments suggesting that maybe it is still effective, but that's why we go to the court to get an answer there. So it's not both, it's one or the other is path. Does that make sense, or?
Are you satisfied with that?
Mhm.
Okay. In terms of a public vote, we could go out for a vote on one project or 3 projects or whatever list, and for whatever amount of money under that bonded indebtedness cap, 130 million, right? Could be done in one vote, could be done project by project or some collection.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from commissioners?
And just, sorry, last clarification. When could we put it out to the voters? Would it have to wait until the next special election cycle?
Right, so we have elections 4 times a year. So let's say the Urban Renewal Commission decided they wanted to put something out to the voters in November of this year, okay? We would pay to be on, for that election, we'd pay for the cost of that election. So if we were the only thing on it, we would pay for the election. If there were 5 things on it, it gets divided up between that. The free elections are the May primary in 26 and the general election in November of 26.
Okay.
But yeah, you could pick, you've seen May elections in off years, so there's 4 times a year the county does elections. The free ones are the primary and the general in the even number years.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we're going to move on to public comments. I do have quite a few, so we are going to hold to the 3-minute time. The timer's over on the end here. The buzzer will go off. I'll give you a few seconds to finish your current thought, but we need to hold to the 3-minute limit. Start by giving your name and city of residence, please. And what I'd like to do, I hope this isn't complicated, but what I'd like to do to try to keep things moving, at first, I'm going to call up 2 people. One go to this table, one go to this table. When the first person is done speaking, I'm going to call up the next person. So come up and fill that empty seat. Baseball players on deck, kind of a thing, okay? So we're not waiting for somebody to come up. So 2 people are going to be here, one's going to speak. I'll call the next person, they'll fill the empty chair, and we'll just go back and forth. Make sense? I got some thumbs up, okay. So the first 2 cards that I have are Paul Edgar and Betsy Jordana Edholm. Mr. Edgar, please go ahead with your name and city of residence.
Thank you. Paul Edgar, Oregon City, and a former Urban Renewal Commissioner with Oregon City. In the past, I had political ambitions, much like many of you before me. That is something I no longer think about, but if I did, I would not want to have on my record that I voted to take away the rights of the voters of Oregon City. The voters approved and put into the city charter Section 59, which requires voter approval. Trying to take that away within any action that infringes on our right to vote that the citizens of Oregon City put into place, where you want to skirt around what was approved in an election. If you do this, it will make many of you in the future unelectable. This is something this will become your scarlet letter, your declaration that you do not care what the citizens want and voted for. You can see here the number of people who are concerned enough that that what you are proposing and it does not sit well. I have reason to believe it could be contested in court, and that could even be me. Having the Urban Renewal Commission sue the city in a frivolous lawsuit, spending public money on what has been reviewed in the Court of Appeals, where they only found Section E unenforceable, can be seen as a callous waste of time and money. For decades, money was taken from the people, and the taxing districts through division of taxes. And to a great extent, this money was friddled away with little to nothing to show for it. What economic development, what new businesses, what new jobs, and we have little to nothing to show in gain. Bought on a lark were 2 houses across from the county museum on Tumwater, and we get some rent from a couple of those houses the Urban Renewal Commission owns, but we don't get rent from spending a lot of money to buy a medical clinic and convert it into an expensive city hall that we barely use anymore. Money that has to be spent on economic development was invested into a city hall building that is inadequate to even hold this meeting, a meeting like this at this time, and the city is not paying rent. Historically, Urban Renewal owned the city hall. Historically, this,
Could you finish your thought, please?
okay, that's good. You have it printed in front of you, you can read it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We aren't responding.
Thank you.
We are not
I have
responding.
a question, that's all.
No, we're not asking questions of people.
You have a point of order?
I have a question.
You have a point of order question?
No, this is a question to the attorney.
You have a question, what, sorry?
I have a question to the attorney.
Can it wait till after we hear public comment?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so if Mary Ann Lee would come up, and Ms. Edholm, please go ahead.
Honorable Mary McGriff and members of the Urban Renewal Commission.
I'll pull the mic a little closer.
No, you can move the whole thing closer to you. Just move the
Okay.
bottom. There you go. No, yeah.
Thank you. I am here tonight to discourage the Urban Renewal Commission from spending our tax money on litigation the URC may very likely lose regarding our charter guaranteed right to vote on urban renewal debt via the 2012 Right to Vote Charter Amendment. I take pride and responsibility in being a resident of Oregon City and am hoping my respected right to vote will live on to ensure all in our community may continue to vote on urban renewal debt. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so if John Lewis would come up, and Ms. Lee, please go ahead.
Okay. I'm Mary Ann Lee. I live in Abernethy Landing, which is part of the Park Place neighborhood of Oregon City. Please don't distinguish our right to vote on urban renewal. We all need to remember that in 2012, citizens of Oregon City brought forth an initiative to require voter approval on urban renewal projects. This initiative was approved by a 2-to-1 ratio. The will of the voters is clear. Fast forward to 2023, a city election was held to determine the fate of Measure 3597. Approval of this measure would have authorized Oregon City Urban Renewal Commission to borrow funds to implement urban renewal projects. This measure was defeated, and if it had not been defeated, I doubt that we would all be here today discussing how to distinguish our right to vote on urban renewal. To put it bluntly, I'm not confident that the Urban Renewal Commission will place a priority on voter wishes. The campaign for Measure 3597 did not do much to bolster my confidence. Advertisements and lawn signs of the said, "Save downtown, vote yes on Measure 3597." However, a careful read of the voter information pamphlet showed downtown projects were not given a priority. In fact, it was quite the opposite. Specifically, the measure explanatory statement section of the voter information pamphlet lists 3 priority projects, which do not include the area that most of us consider downtown Oregon City. And the downtown Oregon City projects were, it stated, they were to be evaluated for future investment. So they weren't even included in the funding is the way I interpreted it. Thus, yes on 3597 advertisements and lawn signs were not consistent with the content of the voter information pamphlet. Consequently, I'm not confident that the Urban Renewal Commission will abide by voter wishes, and I want to be able to vote on those plans. If the right kind of projects are proposed and funding descriptions are free of smoke and mirrors, I think the urban renewal plans will be approved by Oregon City voters. So please, retain our right to vote. Thank you.
Would you give us your name and city of record?
Mary
City
Ann
of
Lee.
residence?
Mary Ann Lee, Oregon City.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, if William Gifford will come up, and Mr. Lewis, you're on.
Thank you, Commission Chair and Commissioners. Yes, my name is John Lewis, and I live in Oregon City. I think you can hear me okay. I'm not sure. So I'm asking tonight for that you provide staff with direction to file a validation suit asking the court to examine and judge the regularity and legality of the action. So option 6 in your staff report is what I'm asking you to do. Why? Well, I've got 5 reasons. I think Chapter 59, contradicting the Oregon state law around tax increment financing, is confusing. It's confused you, it's confused all of those before you that have been involved in urban renewal. I've watched it for many, many years. Chapter 59 has rendered Oregon City's ability to utilize tax increment financing in a significant way basically useless. So the reason why, beyond small improvements to some of our Main Street, your hands have been tied, and I think that's unfortunate. Tax increment financing success stories across the state are many. There's a graphic in some of I think it's that LOC or the urban renewal group that you're a member of, I can't remember which, but it talks about 76 cities. Now that may be a little dated, but 76 cities and counties have active and successful tax increment financing districts. Oregon City is included in that, so I would acknowledge that maybe there's 75 that have been successful because Oregon City has not. Wilsonville, Hood River, Albany, Astoria, there's many great success stories. Some of those urban renewal agencies also made mistakes. So, you know, people are gonna raise some of the mistakes that Oregon City's made. Many other jurisdictions have made that, and they've still not been harbored with a Chapter 59. Encumbered by Charter Section 59, Oregon City would realize many wants unencumbered by Chapter 59. There's many things that we could do. My favorite is something like a world-class swim center, but there's many, many other projects. I won't say I'm in love with the current urban renewal plan, and I'm not advocating for changes right now, but there's many, many projects in this community that we deserve. And then last, the challenge of alignment of the stars on development are many, and trying to deliver some of these more complicated and meaningful projects in Oregon City takes a lot of lifting, and I've listed those. I'm going to share my comments in writing, but I don't have time to list those right now. But I will just say that the kind of development that I'm advocating for takes a very high level of sophistication, and many things can get in the way of that. Chapter 59 is too big a hurdle.
Thank you. Okay, if Linda Smith would come up, and Mr. Gifford, you're on.
Waiting for the dust to settle here. Good evening, Commission. My name is William Gifford, and I live in Oregon City. I like things simple, and the simple truth is that there are 2 disparate, although somewhat related issues at stake here. One is a right to vote, and the other is the efficacy of urban renewal. I think most people would think that urban renewal does a good job. I also think that most people don't know how urban renewal works. It's complicated. On the right to vote, my family's been here for over 370 years. This is my country. I'm proud of my right to vote. I don't want to vote on everything. And there are some things that I really don't have a right to vote on. West Lynn has just started their development. They're not calling it urban renewal, but it is a tax increment project on their waterfront. I don't have the right to vote on that. It doesn't affect my taxes. It's not in my jurisdiction. I don't need a right to vote on things that are not going to affect my taxes and are not in my jurisdiction. And I consider urban renewal one of those things. Urban renewal does not affect my taxes. It doesn't affect any of your taxes. It affects the taxes of the property owners in the urban renewal district. They're not asking for a right to vote. They don't deserve a right to vote. I'm going to keep all of my rights to vote in a representative democracy where I will elect my officials to make decisions for me for issues that are quite literally too complicated for laymen to understand. And I'm not saying that they're stupid, they just have lives. They don't want to spend the hours and hours and hours to understand the intricacies of urban renewal and how it works. But I think that they don't understand that it does not affect their taxes. And they seem to think that if they can vote one way or another, it's going to make something different in their taxes, and it doesn't. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seth Henderson, if you would come up, and Ms. Smith, you're on. Name and city of residence, please.
Hi, Linda Smith, Oregon City. I am a citizen of Oregon City and of the Park Place neighborhood where I've lived for 49 years now. I've never wanted to give up my vote for anything, and I compel the commission to continue to allow citizens to voice their concerns. And it's overwhelmingly apparent tonight, as you'll hear from everyone in the audience, that we don't want to give up our vote. This could be a very costly, wasteful endeavor to ask for charter changes. We heard staff say that it would require some work to get that changed, or to hold an election, whether it be pay for it all or pay for 1/5 or whatever portion of that is. The control taken away from our citizens creates losing freedoms, which we've seen in my lifetime living here in Oregon City. We can no longer vote for annexation of properties, where I voted for all of them in the past, believe me, because I thought that growth was important, but I wanted it to be controlled growth. And instead, we have at the state level some rules that have come down that allow the density to be egregious, in my opinion, and I can't bear that some days. Anyhow, losing the vote is not what the citizens want. The Urban Renewal Commission should listen to what citizens want now, in the past, and in the future. You've seen how votes have turned out and what we want and what we don't want. Please listen to us.
Thank you. Okay, Jackie Hammond-Williams, if you'll come up, please. And Mr. Henderson, you're on. Name and city of residence, please.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. My name's Seth Henderson. I live in Southwest Portland in Multnomah County for only another 18 months until my youngest graduates. I'm going to talk really fast now for 3 minutes. The result of your decision does not impact me personally. Today, my tax dollars go to another urban renewal district, and I can see no scenario where I would enter into an agreement with the Oregon City Urban Renewal Agency. However, in the last work session, Commissioner Smith stated, "I wish you would have all spoke. Be careful what you wish for." Though I am a board member of the Chamber, DOCA, and OCBA, I do not represent any of those organizations this evening, and these are my thoughts only. Per the staff report, 7 options I will refer to but not read in their entirety. Option 1, you tried this, it failed. Nothing has changed. Definition of insanity. Option 2, on a typical ballot measure, opposition is more motivated. People satisfied with the status quo do not show up. The ballot measure fails, section 59 stays as is. What has changed? Number 3, I'm guessing the increase will exceed the value stated once you consider the sales value and property tax potential of the properties the URA has sat on for decades, where they have been off the tax roll. At the very least, I assume this path will require the sale of these properties. That's a positive. Unless they are transferred to the city, not a positive. Number 4, just to be clear, the current tool does not work. So what you're proposing is to reset the basis or have a smaller tool and expect a different result? See some of you back here in 2 years. 5 and 6. I see 5 and 6 as different paths to the same outcome. For me, the content of section 59 is irrelevant. Does the city charter or Oregon statute take precedent on urban renewal? Can the city commission tell the urban renewal agency how they can perform? Or can they act in parallel as currently enacted today? Regardless of the issue, I would want to know whether I was acting legally or illegally. I can't say for certain, neither can you, nor the city attorney. We can all give opinions. The only body who can confirm the application of laws, the judicial system in the state of Oregon, whether that path is worth the effort of political collateral is entirely your call. It may not be, and then I would refer you back to 3. I've given you a couple, I guess there's one more, 7. How much has the city already spent in taxpayer funds on legal fees? Too much? Don't add to it. I've given you some recommendations if you keep an urban renewal plan. Can I give you one closing statement?
Very quickly.
In closing, I appreciate that each of you are volunteers, dedicating thousands of hours over your terms to the betterment of the city. Everyone in this room should thank you, but not tonight, and I do not envy your position. However, you are elected leaders. Lead. You will never satisfy everyone.
wrap up,
Accept
please?
that, make a decision, move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Jesse Buss, if you could come up, and Ms. Hammond-Williams, you're on. Name and city of residence, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jackie Hammond-Williams. I've lived in Oregon City for 35 years. I'm here tonight to ask you not to remove our right to vote. I think there's a lot of drama and mistruths being spoken. I think there's a lot of fear-mongering that just because one project was turned down doesn't mean that every urban renewal project is going to be turned down. John Lewis talked about a wonderful swim center. I think that would be a brilliant idea. I think you would get lots of people voting for that. I think when you talk about, or some people have talked about, it's too complicated for people to understand. That really riles me. It is complicated, but it can be explained fairly simply. And to say that is kind of arrogant, in my opinion. I'm not against urban renewal. There's been a project that was turned down. It was enormous. It was vast. It was a shopping center. Maybe a lot of us in Oregon City want to keep our unique flavor. Maybe we don't want to be any town USA. Maybe we don't want a mall. Malls actually aren't doing very well, so maybe that was a good thing. We can think outside the box. There's a lot of us that are not against development. We are for economic development. We want new things in Oregon City. We want Oregon City to blossom and have all these great, unique things about it. But I think to take away this vote is bad optics. I think you'd have a lot of people upset in Oregon City. Beaverton has this right to vote. Beaverton's flourishing. Corvallis has it. Corvallis is flourishing. So to say that if we don't remove this right to vote, we're not going to get any development is disingenuous. And I'll take my comments away from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now, I've got one card that has both Dee Dee Dalsrud and Carla Laws on it. Are you coming up together?
No, we ran out of paper.
Oh, okay. All right. So Dee Dee, would you go ahead and come up, please? And Mr. Buss, you're on.
Good evening, Chair Mitchell and Commissioners. My name is Jesse Buss. I was born here and moved back about 13 years ago. Until his death in 2023, I represented former Mayor John Williams in several urban renewal related cases. So I have some level of knowledge on urban renewal, but obviously I'm not here representing Mayor Williams. I'm here representing myself tonight. So I was here at your last meeting. I didn't comment, but I listened. And I wanted to comment on something I heard from a few different commissioners. I can't remember which, but a few of you raised the same issue and framed it in the following way. You asked city staff and the city attorney, can't we just go to court and ask whether the charter is constitutional or not? And I don't think that's the right way to frame it. You can't just go to court and ask an open-ended question. As is very clear, and I think if you ask your attorney, he would agree, you can't just go to court and say, here, court, tell us what's right. You have to take out and stake a position. So if you want to go to court, either in a declaratory judgment action or in a the other option, going to court, that was discussed, validation proceeding, you actually have to say to the court or to the people, we think this charter provision is unconstitutional. You actually have to affirmatively say that. So I don't think you can do that without looking really bad to the voters, myself included. So I would urge you to take a combination maybe of action number 1, and the other one, I forget which one it was, which is to consider amending the plan. I think if you have a right project, a smaller project, and as suggested by Mayor McGriff at the last meeting on this topic, perhaps the courthouse, go to the people with something people will understand, realize is really important because we're soon losing the courthouse as a tenant, as an anchor for downtown. They will approve that. And same with perhaps if the plan was amended or a new one opened to incorporate the Tumwater Village site. Also, I disagree with Mr. Gifford. Urban renewal does affect every property owner and renter's taxes in the city of Oregon City. This was an issue a couple years ago in Mr. Williams' last case on urban renewal. It's actually on the ballot title in 2023. And we had, as an expert witness in court, Dina Medicon, the tax assessor's expert on urban renewal for all of Clackamas County. And she testified to the court that, yeah, everyone on their tax bill pays for urban renewal. And although there's not a line item showing how much that increases everyone else's taxes for different agencies, it's going to have that effect. It's just hard to measure because those taxes are diverted. So I would urge you to go to the voters with a smaller project and not attempt to go to court because that would not look very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Carla Laws, if you could come up, please. And Ms. Dalsrud, you're up.
Hi.
Name and city of residence, please.
Hi, my name is Dorothy Dalsrud. I live in Oregon City over 50 years. I am a huge supporter of urban renewal. I vote for it every time if I'm going to have, same with Metro, if it's going to increase my property taxes, it's good for the community. It's okay. And I have voted against it on one of the developments because I didn't believe Cabela's was really coming. But I was very much voted for it on the last one because I went to every single meeting. It looked like it was an ecological quasi-development, large. However,
They asked you to speak up.
okay. However, now that is over, it's done. I'm still a huge supporter of urban renewal, but I'm more of a supporter of our right to vote. We're not stupid. We go to meetings. I'm one of your 73 people that watches every single city meeting, even when I'm on vacation. My sister giggles at me. I gotta know. I gotta be in the know. So anyway, if we gave them great projects, the courthouse is a wonderful one. We all can feel and love the courthouse. That's going to be a huge project, and it's going to have to be privately done with somebody who knows how to sharpen a pencil and vision. I thought you guys were doing an investigation on how much it would cost about the cap on the old dump site, the old Rossman fill. I don't know if you guys ever have made an evaluation on that, but if you said we were going to put a state-of-the-art swimming center, just like they have in Newport Beach and there are other cities where people come to it, that would be totally supported. In fact, that could even work where the old landscaping project is. But to turn that whole area, and the Cove is a worthwhile project. Put in a state-of-the-art swimming project down there, a developer will come in. There are more options, and I think if we give it a vote and a smart way to go, a project we can see, feel, and understand, then we'll vote for it. I know I do, and I vote every election, every special election. And I have 5 voters in my house, 4 of them voters in my house other than myself, and we don't necessarily all vote the same, but we're all voters. But then these local issues, they do listen to my ear. Thank you very much. I appreciate you all so much. I know how much work you do. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Dave Demers, if you would come up, please, and Carla Laws, you're up.
Carla Laws, Oregon City. Everyone has spoken, said a lot of things. I don't want to repeat things over and over and over, but I would say that obviously some people have said important things, that some of you have been elected and you influence our decisions on, what we get to, the opportunities to do, which is really important. What I would say is obviously you get to make decisions for our future, and I do think our vote's very important. Obviously, I think that the majority of people, whether we all have different values and different intelligent levels, and we can't really measure who's, capable of what, but I do think if the public is informed and we educate the public, I think the majority of people will try to understand, and if we give them the opportunity, will make an educated decision. I do think people, even on certain, elections, will skip certain topics or certain candidates because they just don't have enough information. Now, that being said, I do think that if we do supply people with information, I think in faith and that we should give people the opportunity and the benefit of the doubt and educate people on information. And I do think as a city, we could do better at that. And I think if we did that and improved educating the public more on issues, I think we'd have more, possibly a positive outcome on urban renewal. And I think that's some responsibility on how we present that to the residents. And that's all I wanted to say. And again, like Dee Dee said, I do appreciate your volunteer time, and thank you very much.
Thank you. If James Nacita will come up, please, and Mr. Demers, you're up. Name and city residence, please.
David Demers, Oregon City. I just have two little points to kind of make out about this. It's my understanding that general obligation bonds require voter approval. This needs to be upheld and consistent with urban renewal projects also, as far as the votes having our voter, maybe on the bigger projects having voter approval. Let it be known as the Urban Renewal Committee is supposed to be a separate entity, and yet most of the members are the same as the city's commissioners. Objectivity is a conflict of interest. And those are the two things I wanted to point out. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Betty Mumm, if you would like to come up, and Mr. Nacita, you're up.
Chair Mitchell and Commissioners, James Nacita from Oregon City. Binding votes approving urban renewal in Beaverton and Corvallis, and advisory votes approving urban renewal in Wilsonville and West Lynn make it clear that the right to vote on urban renewal works and empowers citizens to have both quality economic development and control of the destiny and future of their community. It should go without saying that the key to such voter approval is an inspiring plan and citizen trust and confidence in their elected and appointed leadership. Leadership is key. It seems clear that such trust and confidence exists in the 4 cities mentioned above. In Oregon City, we have what many, if not most, citizens believe is an uninspiring urban renewal plan. In Oregon City, in the 12 years since Oregon City citizens enacted our right to vote charter provision, there has only been 1 vote in 2023 regarding leadership. Not 1, but 2 city commissioners refused even to have their own names included in a pro-voter measure voters pamphlet statement with the other 3 city commissioners. Perhaps these 2 commissioners had the same lack of trust and confidence that many citizens felt. Furthermore, the campaign was disingenuous, highlighted by lawn signs that said the measure would save downtown when virtually all the money would have gone to the 3 projects on the north end. People saw through that, and it added to their cynicisms. So the voters said no, as voters had said no in Corvallis first, before those Corvallis voters said yes in a subsequent binding vote. Again, regarding leadership. Unlike Corvallis leaders who respected the no vote, regrouped, and put forth a plan that voters could and did approve, the push here, after one no vote, is to expend taxpayers' money, own money, to go to court to try to extinguish the right to vote that voters themselves earned through their hard work in undertaking a citywide initiative in 2012. And a lawsuit is likely to lose and result in an extraordinary waste of taxpayer funds. I ask you, why weren't those similar charter provisions and in Corvallis and Beaverton taken down by litigation years ago? Over the past weeks, you have been provided with numerous suggestions how you can proceed without taking the extreme measure of going to court in extinguishing our right to vote. I think Mayor McGriff's suggestion for the courthouse in February provides one positive pathway forward, but again, there are many others. Thank you.
Thank you. Betty Mum.
Good evening, Betty Mum, Oregon City. I was not planning to say anything, but here I am. So, where do I start? You know, if people talk about the past and how the urban renewal has not done the right thing, you're correct. The city hall down there is still active with staff people. They're still working in that building. But the commission was told at the time, by the city manager at the time, that it would not hold all the departments. So it would have to have space rented for different departments. The city manager knew it was not a good idea. The commission went forward, used urban renewal, purchased the building, and staff is still currently working there. So the courthouse was brought up a lot. So my question to everybody is, if the courthouse is sold to a developer and that developer feels they need to tear down that courthouse, but they need some urban renewal funds to help them rebuild it, is that something the citizens are gonna approve of? Because the building will be gone. I don't know, it's a good question. A lot of people say there are so many things that can be used for urban renewal, but yet they don't put forth any ideas. I have said all along that this measure that's in the charter was illegal to begin with. It's a state-run program. It should not be in the city charter. If you're gonna keep it in the city charter, make it an advisory vote. And I know that everybody up here will obey what the citizens say on that advisory vote. So those are my only comments. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Did I miss anybody? Is there anybody who hasn't turned in a card but would like to speak now? Now's your chance, okay? I see one. If you could turn the card in. And I believe this is Matthew Broderick. Please go ahead. Go right up.
I'm sorry, I wasn't planning on speaking. But English people always sound better when they're on microphone, and Jackie already had a chance, so I thought I'd balance it out a little bit.
Your name and city of residence, please.
My name is Matthew. I'm from Oregon City, Matthew Broderick. When I look around the room here, I see a lot of familiar people. And I think that's because there can't be more than a couple of hundred people in Oregon City that are actually politically engaged. I see them all the time, the same people. Carla Laws is here, you know, Jim Nacita, everybody. And I wonder if that was the same back in 2012 when this was passed, original. In fact, I think it's only like around about 10% of people in Oregon City actually vote on the mayor. Like when it happens, how many people actually vote down ballot?
Not a lot.
So how many people does this actually represent? 100% of the NIMBYs, that's for sure. Sorry. So then I wonder who actually isn't in the room, who isn't being represented here. Single parents who don't have time. They would have liked the ice rink that was proposed by Summit when they proposed the big, fast thing. It was supposed to be a shopping mall, but there was going to be an ice rink as well. They actually went out and they asked the kids, what do you guys want in Oregon City? And they said they don't have anything to do, so they were going to propose an ice rink for that place. What an amazing thing that would have been. And it went to the voters, and the voters said no. And honestly, I don't really trust that the voting be engaged. The mostly retired, not in the 30 to 39 workers or people with kids, I think they will turn it down. I think they'll turn down anything. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. That's all I have to say about that. I'm thinking about the people that aren't in this room today, the people who really could use new facilities, who could use new swimming pools, who could use new parks for their kids. Because I want my kids to grow up in a place where they have facilities, where they have cheaper housing, where they have things to go to, where they have things to do. And I think that's the kind of thing that urban renewal unlocks, at least for me. So that's my piece. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, at this point, what's the will of the commission? You want to take 5 minutes, or do you want to plug on?
Let's go for it.
Go for it? Okay.
Let's go for it. I may have already changed my mind.
Commissioner, you had a question for the city attorney, I believe?
Yeah, thank you. I would like to just, well, probably city manager, can you tell me which properties are owned by the Urban Renewal District? I know what they are. I know.
Do you have the list and the plan of all the properties? Doug asked which properties are owned by the Urban Renewal Agency?
That's right. Yeah, versus the city.
The Cove and the properties around the Cove are owned by the Urban Renewal Agency. Stimson property, the Amtrak property where Coasters is located. As you continue up, you get to 10th and Main is owned by Urban Renewal. The two houses by the Museum of the Oregon Territory on Tumwater are owned by Urban Renewal. Is that it?
Is 12th and Main City or Urban Renewal?
No, 12th and Main's interesting because it had multiple funding sources. The city, Urban Renewal, there was some federal money. The title is in the city.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I think City Hall, the property is owned by Urban Renewal. I believe so. I think that's it.
Then the lot on Washington across from Stimson is, I think,
Oh, where its chamber used to be?
yeah. I'm not sure if that's city or,
I think it's city.
I can't remember.
Any other questions? Okay, the floor is open for discussion.
Mike?
Commissioner Smith.
I'm going to start with just the comments from the public that stood out to me, because I'm sick of this topic. And I, in the sense that I've been here, maybe with the exception of one or two people here, the longest in this conversation. I'll flat out say, when I was first elected in this town, I was really not happy with urban renewal. Why? Because we made, I wasn't on there, they made horrible mistakes. City Hall, horrible mistake, stupid. Black Point Inn, et cetera, many, many dumb decisions with urban renewal. So that point from citizens like Paul Edgar is fully taken, and we need to own that. The comments, multiple comments tonight about campaign signs with the slogan, and I don't know if the person sitting in this room, because I don't know who came up with that, but whoever came up with that slogan
wow, what a huge mistake. Because everyone in this room, even that's, on the opposite side of and critical of urban renewal, supports urban renewal. But I couldn't support that ridiculous slogan of support downtown because it was a lie. And it wasn't going to help downtown. And why was it inconsistent with the message? Because the people created that message were not in step with the Urban Renewal Commission that was actually moving it forward or thinking about it. It made no sense. And we knew it wasn't going to save downtown. If it did, people might have actually approved it. So we have to get over this two-sidedness. I've talked about this at every meeting. And so one of the things that stood out to me also tonight is Jesse's comments. Why? Because we keep getting this message in the sign saying that you believe we want to take away your votes, when in fact the whole beginning of this meeting was how we could make sure we were addressing the voters and making sure it went to the voters. The reason that we're here is because we want to know what the real legalities of it are, and I think Jesse spoke to it perfectly. If we're going to sue to find out, then that's spitting in the face of our voters. It's not, even though we want to know the answer, that's what started that conversation in the first place. I would love to go through a legal process to see what is really law and what is really the truth, but that's at expense of going against our voters instead of actually working with our voters to fix it. And who are the voters when we say the will of the people? They're the people that live in this town. They're not the business owners necessarily or the developers that are doing these projects, right? And so the developers and the business people that want to see these projects happen have to know that they have to go and answer to that voter's question that was given to us and told to us, right? We have to fix that piece. And it's clear to me in every meeting we're at that most of the opponents of what we're doing care for urban renewal and want to see it be successful and actually share some of the same ideas that the business owners and developers see as well. The other piece of it to me is, we don't need another shopping center. I mean, what we need is to, and I've spoken about this at every possible meeting, if we want Oregon City to be successful in economic development and tourism, then the tourism infrastructure has to happen below the bluff because we don't want tour buses in our neighborhoods. We don't want tourism to affect that. We want people to be able to come off the highway, not going to a strip mall, but supporting the whole infrastructure of the city to be shuttled from the below the bluff to the mill site and up into the neighborhoods without causing craziness throughout the city and lowering our livability. But the only way this is going to be successful is if the two camps get together, find a project that we all support and plug the heck out of it, and it'll pass. But if we try to do this in lawsuits, we'll be at it for the next 10 years and we'll never see anything successful in this town. And so that's the question we have. And I'm sick of being up here year after year going over the same stupid conversations and the same meetings, the same arguments. Can't we just fix it? And I hope we can, because 10, 20 years from now, when I'm maybe sitting up here in a different position, I don't want to be driving through the town wishing we would have done something different. So I'm not supportive of suing ourselves or suing the citizens or whatever. I want to fix urban renewal. I want to make this town great. I shouldn't have said that last part. I want to make Oregon City awesome.
May I go next, please?
Yes, you may.
Well, it's not very often that I can one-up Rocky, but I'm going to. I wasn't going to, but I'm going to. Urban renewal, I have been around, in and around urban renewal in Oregon City since 1988, and I think that precedes you. So once in my life, I can say I've done something longer than Rocky. I am not going to go back and talk about the past and the mistakes were made, because I'm sure I could point out as many as you are. I want to be very positive. It has been alleged that urban renewal hasn't done anything. Well, you are wrong. We have, I can't remember how many businesses are in red soils, but the city purchased that property from the county. We used urban renewal to purchase it. We used urban renewal money to improve the access to Beaver Creek Road, because if any of you were here back then, it was not worth its salt. It was very narrow. Trucks had difficulty with access. We improved Beaver Creek Road. We improved the intersection of Malala and Beaver Creek, and we brought 25 plus, and there may be more than that, businesses to the area. We lured Benchmade Knives here. I can't remember, unfortunately, how many employees they have, but we have brought some major businesses a major return on investment. That district was closed down, unfortunately, because there was still more work to do. Even though it wasn't as successful as the commission at the time thought it was, we have some units at the Edgewater, I think it's called Edgewater at the Cove, provided housing for new residents. In 2012, many of you who were here then remember that we closed down Main Street while the bridge was being redone, and we basically fixed up Main Street. We had a request from the community to make it two-way. It became two-way. Our Public Works Department led that project, and it led to, in my opinion, us receiving a major National Main Street Award, and we have a very vibrant downtown. We have businesses. We do have some recalcitrant owners down there who don't seem to want to lease their buildings for businesses, or the rents are really high, but we're working on that. So I think that we have another return on investment. We brought Adventist Credit Union to Oregon City. There are a number of jobs there. James can probably tell me off the top of his head how many jobs we brought there. And then there was a comment about the two houses on Tumwater. Well, we purchased those, I believe, as I recall, and Tony, correct me, to make a road improvement there at where Tumwater comes down, as I recall, and I think there may have been people in this room who were on the commission at that time. He's shaking his head no. So what did we, as I recall, those two?
We were going to build a tram across the river.
That's right.
Okay, well, that didn't happen, but anyway, so we still have to dispose of those properties. So for any of you that ever were at 320 Warner Milne Road, I had the pleasure of working in that building for over 8 years. Let me just say it was a piece of crap. Our police department was in there, crammed in there. They didn't even have showers. I worked on the other side in a trailer because we didn't have enough room and it was unsafe. Whether or not we think that the idea of buying the property that was being improved, that used to be the old McLean Clinic, City Hall is there. We sold the property at 320 Warner Milne Road. Believe me, I'm glad we didn't. It was supposed to be a temporary building, and it was temporary for about 20 years too long. It was unhealthy. I'm telling you, I think we should have shut it down long before, but we didn't have any place to move. So there are lots of things that we did to provide return on investment, and I think urban renewal is still a valuable tool. I do appreciate the 2-3 people that mentioned the idea that I had about, and it wasn't only my idea, there are other people here who think that the courthouse may be a viable project, and I appreciate your compliment because I still think it's a viable project. I too don't want to be talking about this anymore, so we agree, Rocky, as we frequently do. I think we need to figure out a project that's in our plan that we updated, and I believe that project is in there, and move on. I don't want to be doing this. I still have a number of many active years here in Oregon City, and I would really like to see us do something with downtown that's going to really benefit this community. So I think that it behooves all of us to work together to move things forward. Some of the communities that were mentioned, those are advisory votes, and they may or may not work. I do know a couple of people on the council in Corvallis, and have had a chance to talk to them. I have not had a chance to talk to some colleagues in Beaverton about how things are going there, but there are lots of things that are moving in Beaverton. But the thing about Beaverton, and forgive me, Mayor Beatty, I don't know where the there is in Beaverton. They have a lot of new development. We have the there. We have the here. I know that there's 4 blocks in Beaverton that might be part of what used to be Beaverton. The rest of it, I don't know. I find Beaverton very puzzling in many ways, but I think we still have a valuable tool. I'm hoping this commission will move forward, and let's stop messing around.
Move forward with what, if I may ask?
Move forward with a project that we can get the public behind and stop doing all this other stuff. We're on the verge of doing one of the projects. We're going to sell the Stimson property, which I think is still a good move, and we are moving towards that. We're getting it shovel ready, as they say, so that it can be put on the market. We have one little project left to do there, and we'll get that moved forward. And we have other properties that we can dispose of.
Commissioner
So thank
Neely.
you.
Commissioner Neely.
Well, I'm going to have to tell Rocky he's got 1.5 years plus to add up to the total commission time on the commission. But anyway, having said that, yeah, I think we have to look at the properties that we own as the number one thing. I agree that we probably ought to take a serious look at whether or not we wish to redefine the district. I think the potential there at Tumwater Village is tremendous. It's true they've been able to find federal fundings. We have no idea what that's going to look like in the future. But I think their contribution to the tax base there should be put back into the development of that particular facility. And I think those are the two things I would like to put forward. Number one, deal with the properties that we own. Number two, the other. I'm not aware of what's happening between the city and the county in terms of the courthouse. And if there's something that we need to be told about, I'd like to hear of that in the future. And as a city commission?
Yes.
Okay. And so when we hear about that, that would be something else I would seriously like to consider.
The comment
But at this point, I don't know the county's position on it.
Sorry, the comment that Commissioner McGriff made that you might not have heard is that we do have a joint work session with the county commission that will be here on April 8th to discuss the courthouse.
Thank you all for coming. This is often not a well-attended meeting. I'm sure most of you watch on TV, but I wanted to thank you for ardently standing up for democracy and the right to vote. I think in this day and age, disenfranchisement is running rampant, and on a daily basis, it's a threat. So thank you for coming, and thank you for being a part of this conversation. I believe in the mission of urban renewal. I think we have the potential to turn a lot of the sites that we currently own into beautiful places, family places, places that boast business and are an economic driver. I think the Cove could be a beautiful bike lane area with a running path if it's clean, if it's safe, if it's lighted, if it's developed a little bit, but preserved in its natural form. I think the courthouse could be a very interesting project that sits at the center of our community and could act as, again, another economic driver in our community. But I also know that the public feels disenfranchised and that the commission lacks the trust of the public and the engagement. And I feel that we owe you all tangible plans for development. I think a lot of the plans in the urban renewal plan could be updated. I think it would behoove us to have open houses and really see, do we want a swim park? Do we want parks? Do we want community centers? Do we want hotels? What would the public use? And I think building that support would only drive our success. And I would really like to see our commission refocus on what we can do and what we should do and what would be wished upon in Oregon City. But we're limited. Development can take years. That's the truth. Section 59 encumbers us in our ability to do studies beyond a year. It limits us in our ability to meet with consultants, have concept plans, develop land beyond a year, which challenges and encumbers our ability for progress. And I think that's what this body wants, is progress. But we can't do it because the law is unclear and because it encumbers our ability to work progressively towards something. I completely support manageable limits on budgets and spending, and I completely support getting citizen support for projects. But we also have to be able to work efficiently, and we can't do that right now. And so I hope this board moves for more community support, but also for clarification in what we can do and what the public wants us to do with those funds. Because we have funds sitting there that should be used, could be used, can be used for the betterment of Oregon City. And I think it's up to us to shepherd that in, every one of us.
Commissioner Wilson.
Thank you. So unlike some of you, I am relatively new to this conversation on urban renewal, and I can say from firsthand experience, it is a complicated topic, and I've been doing my best to, sorry, is that better? Okay, thank you. To, as you say, drink from a fire hose, as I'm learning, right? As you know, we've been listening to the public comments. The issue at hand that we're talking about here is the Urban Renewals Commission, or the Urban Renewal Commission's ability to take on debt, to leverage debt. And what I think is interesting is, from my perception, not very many of the comments were about the actual debt piece, but about the projects themselves. And I think what that does is it highlights how those two are inextricably linked, right? And I don't think that we can really separate those with sending the votes out to the public. Well, again, it really is about the debt. Really what the people care about is, well, what is this project? Do I want to take on this debt for this particular project? And so you may have people that, you know, would be okay with the same amount of debt for one project and that same amount of debt not for another, because it's not what they want to see. And I think we need to recognize that and put forth projects that the city would support and does believe in. I think that there are benefits to a few of these options. You know, as I've been learning and increasing my understanding of the topics, I want to touch on something that Mr. Buss said. In a work session we had a while ago, we talked about the idea of a validation suit, right? And the question was, and the way I kind of understood at that point was kind of going to, you know, Judge and saying like, hey, what do you think here, right? What is this? As opposed to taking a stance and saying, we believe that this is, you know, not enforceable. And with that, going back to something that I said at our goal setting retreat, at the end when we were able to kind of give our thoughts, I think we need to be very mindful of what message our decision sends to the people of Oregon City. Because we are here for them. We are here to represent them. I do not think that going to court is good luck on us. I don't think that's the right thing to do. And I don't think that, well, I know it's not what the people in this room want. And I don't support that. A concern that I will be honest I do have is the idea of this what if, right? And I'm concerned that a commission 2, 5, 10 years down the road might be kicking this can down the road again and saying, well, is this enforceable? Is this okay? I think that I think to you know, Commissioner Smith and you know, Mayor Griff, or Commissioner Griff, we should be funding projects that the city supports. We should put things in front of the voters that they can get behind, and we should do a good job of educating and promoting those projects.
Commissioner Morrow.
Thank you, Chair. So I've been going back and forth on this the last couple weeks. I thought that I was in one place, I ended up in another, and then I went back again and I went back. And I think that's probably characteristic of most of the people sitting up on this dais, because on several occasions, we have unanimously decided that we wanted to get legal clarification. Not once, not twice, I think 3 or 4 times, this commission has unanimously said that we wanted that clarification. And at first I was interested, as I made clear with my line of questioning at our last meeting about this, that I was interested in what a discussion with the public, what an educational type outreach might look like. But then I started thinking about what the purpose of our government is. Why do we even elect people to represent us? Right now, many of us are in the middle of doing our taxes. We've got that special day in April coming up here soon. And one way that I put this to someone is that I elect my congresswomen and congressmen, and I elect my senators to deal with the Internal Revenue Code, because I do not have the time in my day to go through that line by line and decide what it should be. Even though I have my very strong opinions on it and I would like to pay less in taxes, I recognize that we elect people to get down into the details that residents just don't want to or have the time to get down into. So I would first make that point. I don't have any question that the people in this room don't have an understanding of urban renewal. But when I go and see the Oregon City Chit Chat posts and the comments, it becomes abundantly clear that the people who are commenting are simply responding to the overarching, they're trying to take away our right to vote versus an actual knowledge of what urban renewal is. And that's abundantly clear by the contents of some of the comments. People saying like, I think this is one of the reasons why we don't have more development happening in Oregon City. It was apparent to me that we do have a lot of work to do when it comes to educating our residents about this. And I say all of this as one of the people who led the recall of our mayor a couple years ago and had to go through the process of coordinating an entire campaign of collecting signatures to get something on the ballot so that the people's voice could be heard. This was during COVID. The week we turned in our signatures, our final signatures, was when everyone had to leave the town because there were fire evacuations going on. So there were a lot of things that were pushing against us in our ability to be successful. So I take the right to petition your government and collect signatures very seriously. It's been brought up many times that we have taken oaths to uphold the city charter, and that is absolutely true. And we also took oaths to uphold the United States Constitution and the Constitution of the state of Oregon. And the truth is, with that last Court of Appeals ruling saying that state law preempts what we can do with our city charter, people need to understand that there are other levels of government that come before us and that take precedence over the decisions that we make. I think many of us in this room are not happy with the way that certain developments are being foisted upon this city because of state law. And if we could do something about that, we would. And we have done many things that are, the few things that are still left at our disposal. But in the end, we follow the law because that's what the state legislature and our governor are saying that we have to do, even though we would like to see it go differently. I think that we have people who are nervous about the legal standing of what a decision in the future would look like, because when I go through the court decision and it clearly spells out how the Urban Renewal Agency and the city are different entities, and that the governing document of one cannot control another. Someone brought up the urban renewal, or they're calling it a TIF district, the tax increment financing district, about how they don't have a say over what happens in the West Lynn TIF district. And that's, I guess, an analogy I would use is that we don't have the right to vote on theirs because it's a different entity. It's not only in a different city, it is a totally different thing. And that's exactly what the courts have told us about urban renewal here in Oregon City, is that they are not the same entity. So with that being said, then I went back to wanting to seek legal clarity. But given the timeline that spells out for us and the fact that We don't know when the courts would be able to make a decision or not, and what the appeals process would look like. Then I have problems with that, because that keeps us in the same state of limbo that we've been in this entire time. And I said from the beginning, when I expressed interest in going to court, that if we did get a decision from the court that this is enforceable, then I would be happy to shut down and never attend one of these meetings ever again. I would be happy to do that. I think we have a lot of people who do not support urban renewal who are encouraging us to continue going out for a vote. But I don't feel convinced that we're going to get a response that, oh, we're going to work with the city to help get something passed. I just don't have faith that that's going to occur either. I think that it's being used just as an argument at its face. And I don't think that people are going to be willing to have discussions about what a shared project and shared vision might look like. And I'll just say a little bit why I support urban renewal. As someone who grew up here, I've never lived anywhere else or called anywhere else home. And so having seen the way that Main Street has developed into what it is today, thanks to urban renewal, I don't want to, and the mayor touched on this, or Commissioner McGriff touched on this, people have referenced Beaverton, which I think is kind of funny because I don't think in any other aspect those people want us to be like Beaverton. But making sure that we preserve what makes Oregon City special. And when I was ultimately deciding whether I was going to run to continue serving on the commission, the number one question was whether I could afford to continue living here, to actually represent the residents. We have a lack of housing supply, and this is a very strong tool that can be used to address that. Another thing that really motivates me in my work on the commission is the fact that all of my friends in high school would always talk about how they were so excited to get out of Oregon City because there's nothing to do and there are no job prospects. Urban renewal is a tool that we can use to change that. I really worry about what many people call the impacts of brain drain. When you have people leaving your communities to pursue jobs in other cities and communities and taking away their business from our local companies, taking away all of the benefits of having them stay in our community would bring. I would also note, people always talk about how this diverts tax revenue from other districts, and I think it says a lot that, for example, the fire district has remained neutral on these conversations of when we go out. And I would remind folks that firefighters unions are some of the most active unions that there are. And having talked to many of them, they say that the reason why they remain neutral is because they recognize that once the district is closed, that will mean even more money coming back because of the increase in the property tax value. People bring up education. We have something called the Common School Fund. Education is one of my policy areas in my professional job, and this is something that the state created, and that is invested through the Oregon Investment Council, and that spreads funds throughout the state, so that different districts in the state with varying property values still get the amount of money that they need in order to be successful. And so we are still getting money from the state when we engage in urban renewal. I also think it's interesting to hear people say that they don't want us to use or waste tax dollars on litigation, and I would hope that they would hold themselves to that same standard concerning some of our most litigious residents. And in many of those cases, they're cases that I think are valid. But I do think that's something that ought to maybe be reciprocated if this is something that we're actually going to do. So with all of that being said, and I apologize for going on and on, but I have a lot of thoughts and I wanted to explain why I've kept going back and forth. With all of that being said, I do not believe that moving forward with a declaratory judgment or a validation suit or whatever would be in the best interest of us. I think that we need to work together to find something. that's suitable for our voters and go out and try again. That's where I am right now. I am not interested in seeing an extended timeline go on another decade with more appeals, with more courts taking their own sweet time to make a decision on something and keeping us in the position where we are. It's not like we can go to the court and ask them to do something and get that answer tomorrow and start doing what we want to do. That's not going to happen. And even if they do, it's going to be appealed. So that's where I am right now.
Wow.
Did you summarize all of
Yeah. Obviously, this is a difficult decision, and I'll start by saying thank you to all of you who spoke. Thank you for keeping it professional and on the issues. I was listening carefully during the comments for somebody to provide me with a reason that a public vote is a good idea to assist urban renewal. And I didn't hear it. Yes, we all want a right to vote. And there's so much going on in our country right now, and I think whether we're conscious of it or not, I think we're all affected right now, subconsciously or unconsciously, whichever it is, by what is going on nationally and what's happened at the state level, as has been referred to. The other thing that I was struck with in the comments, the courthouse was brought up as a possible project. We don't own the courthouse. We don't have control over that. A pool was brought up. A recreation facility at the Cove was brought up. One of the biggest criticisms of urban renewal in Oregon City, and in honesty, I don't think we'd even be here tonight, and I don't think there would be a Chapter 59 if the City Hall had not been built on using urban renewal funding, because it did not put that property back on the tax roll and add any tax value. And several of the things that were brought up tonight are the same way. A pool would be a public facility, and it would probably take property off the tax roll, because the chances are we'd have to go buy property, because I don't know that we own any suitable property. So there are going to be people who are going to object to using urban renewal funds that way. Not that it's not a good idea, but maybe urban renewal isn't the right way. I'm going to make a correction on something that I've said a few times, and I'll actually credit Mr. Nacita for making me rethink this. I've said several times that no developer would come to Oregon City with a requirement for a public vote. And I don't know that. I shouldn't have said it that way. But I do know that it would make it less likely. It adds uncertainty. It makes our urban renewal program less attractive to development. And when the point of urban renewal is to attract development to properties that are challenged, if you look at the list of properties that we're talking about, there are serious issues with all of them, whether it's a geotech issue or a giant sewer easement that runs right through the property, or water quality issues. None of them are easy properties to develop. And so the point of urban renewal is to attract that development to a project that is otherwise not attractive. And I'm really struggling with why we would put something in a program that's designed to make development more attractive. Why would we put in the element of a public vote that makes our program less attractive? So that's the struggle that I'm kind of having with. And I'm going to say one more thing. I think one of the geniuses of the way urban renewal is set up in state law as an independent entity is to keep the politics out of it. There's campaign signs all over the room. There's reference made tonight over the campaign signs that were used on the last vote. That puts the politics right back into it. And that, to me, is the struggle with Chapter 59. It brings politics into a decision where it shouldn't be. The Urban Renewal Commission should be able to make a clear economic decision. What is best for the economics of Oregon City? What's best for our future? Without the political considerations. I mean, there were some veiled threats made tonight about people are going to be unelectable if they vote to try to take away the right to vote. That's not what urban renewal decisions should be based on, and that's why I'm struggling with Chapter 59. On the other side of the argument, I think we all know, everyone in this room knows, we all know up here, urban renewal in Oregon City needs champions. And because of a basic distrust in government, I don't think this body can be, anybody here can be that champion. It has to come from the community. And the problem I'm having, if we go ahead with a validation suit, and I'm back in the political argument again, we're not going to get those champions. We're going to make the division worse. So I don't know what to think. It's a no-win. What I don't want to see happen, and this has been referred to, I don't want to see, as Commissioner Smith said, and as the mayor said, I don't want us to see us keep having these arguments year after year after year. And that, to me, that's the most important thing we need to come out with tonight is a clear path forward. So, I don't know. Somebody help me out here. I'm burying myself in the sand. I think I am.
So we have the awkward silence again. Well, I guess I will just go ahead and do it since nobody is stepping up to the plate. So I would like to recommend that we move forward with option number 1 and put a project on a ballot requesting approval to take on a certain amount of debt.
I'll second.
Commissioner Neely, Commissioner McGriff made the motion to go with option number 1. Commissioner Neely has seconded that. Go ahead with the roll call, please.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Lori Arenello.
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
Commissioner Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Commissioner Doug Neely.
Aye.
Commissioner Scott Wilson.
Aye.
And Chair Mike Mitchell.
In the interest of a clear path forward and commitment from this commission, I'll vote aye.
Motion passes.
And you are all going to have to help. Any comment, any communication?
And we have one more.
We have one more item?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
It's item 4A.
Oh, thank you. I don't have my agenda
Oh,
open
okay.
in front of me.
You want me to go ahead and, no. Mr. Conkle, would you like to do 4A or should I do 4A? He's going, what's 4A?
Sorry.
Urban Renewal Budget Committee
Budget Committee appointments.
Yep, so tonight, for the Urban Renewal Budget Committee appointments, the Urban Renewal Committee is looking at appointing members Chris Groner and David Mabey, with their term ending for Mr. Groner in December 31st of 26, and for Mr. Mabey, December 31st of 27. And And then members of the City Budget Committee that are also appointed to the Urban Renewal Commission Budget Committee are Bill Peterson with a term ending in December 31st of 28, Dave Hunt, term ending 12/31 of 28, and Sherry Weber, 12/31/2027.
I assume we only vote for the renewal.
This is just recognition.
Yeah.
Mayor McGriff doesn't have to bring these to us, but she does as a matter of courtesy, so that's what it is.
And just so you know, I did interview each and every person, review their resumes, and we had several good applicants. I wanted to appoint more people, but Matt said I couldn't. So.
Okay, so those appointments will go forward. Any communications?
That's all we have for tonight.
Anything from the good of the order? Anyone else? Once again, let me thank you all for being here and the way this was conducted tonight. Our city commission meeting will begin at 8 p.m. and we're adjourned.